Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for investing your time with us. My name is Steffi, and I am executive at Mahatattva. Today, we have an amazing panel on critical thinking in today's classroom, where we will be talking about the big trends we need to look into, which might also, impact the way we teach and learn ourselves as teachers. So, before we dive into the discussion, I would like to just share the agenda and the first thing, we will take a few moments to introduce our panel. And moving forward, Deepthi ma'am, our moderator, would kickstart the panel discussion. Afterwards, we will have a small question answer session where we will take up the questions that you asked during the discussion. Feel free to comment your questions and thoughts in the comment section below. And this is what we're going to do. So let's just get started with the panel introduction. I'll just share my screen. So, Deepthi ma'am, Miss Deepthi Sawne, CEO and founder of Mahatattva. She is the moderator and educator for excellence. Deepthi ma'am has worked with schools in India and United Kingdom. She is currently pursuing her PhD in educational technology, and as the CEO of Mahatattva, works closely with Google India on NCRT and CBSE projects for the teacher training. Moving forward, we have Ms. Toril Shah. She is a new age educator, founder at Risha, principal of Dominic's Group of Education Institute, homeschooler, children's author, and a storyteller as well. So we are very glad to have you, Ms. Toril. Moving forward, we have Ms. Shirsha Konduri. She is the vice principal at Chirek International Hyderabad and also the head of research and teacher training at Chirek International Hyderabad. More than 2 decades of experience in teaching, training, and educational counseling and research. Welcome to the discussion, ma'am. Moving forward, we have Ms. Surabhi Mishra, our academic coordinator for the Chandigarh Tri-City. She works with us at Mahatattva. She's also an educator for the past 3 decades, and she has done a lot of training and courses during her journey as an educator. She attended many training sessions. One of them, which is program on critical thinking by CTC Simon Fraser University, which is developing a critical thinking skills in students. So she is one of the experts in the critical thinking area today. So thank you so much, ma'am, for having us, and welcome to the panel discussion. Lastly, we have Ms. Renu Dadwal. She is our academic consultant, Google Arts and Culture, Mahatattva itself. She is an alumnus from Delhi University and JNU. She has a teaching experience of over 15 years as a TGT in Social Science Department. And right now, currently, she has retired as a teacher, but she is working with us as a consultant. Welcome, ma'am. I would like to now give the baton to Deepthi ma'am, and she can just start off the panel discussion.
So thank you so much, Steffi. That was brilliant. Um, and I am absolutely in awe of this panel that we have here today. We have been talking about this topic, getting ready. What do we say in front of you all here, the people who are watching the panel discussion today? And I've heard some amazing things from these panelists. And I'm sure the 1 hour that we're going to spend together, we will make this topic threadbare, and we will talk about our own experiences and also make sure that you understand what this is all about. We are going to have a few themes, and like Steffi said, we are also live on YouTube right now. So if you have any questions, we do have some time at the end where we will ask the panel about your questions, but we will keep the themes to introducing critical thinking to you in the classroom. We will talk about the students and the teachers. Of course, we can't forget about the teacher professional development, and we will talk about critical thinking as a life skill. So these are a few themes that we will stick to. But like I said, if you are in the audience and if you have something very, very urgently that you need to ask, please do go ahead and type that question. So, as a teacher trainer, I have always had these, the arts and the music and the PE teachers who are there in the professional development, and they'll say, I understand all of this, I understand standards, I understand our learning outcomes, but ye critical thinking kya hai, ye samajh mein nahi aata. And I remember one PE teacher from Punjab, he caught hold of me in one of my workshops and he said, ma'am, ye kya critical thinking aap keh rahe ho, ye bilkul samajh mein nahi aata. So I told him, sir, do you have a photo, do you have a camera? He said, yes ma'am, camera to hai. I said, okay, jab next time bacche basketball khelenge, take small clips of photographs of videos of them playing, and when they are in the classroom, let the children look at these videos and talk about what was right, what was wrong. You only have to do a few things, and those things are, you have to make them brave enough to think and talk. You have to make sure that the environment, and my panelists have been talking about a non-threatening environment where the children can share their perspectives and they can talk to each other about, this was right, this was wrong, and we could have done it this way. So problem solving, self-reflection, self-regulation, all are these skills which are inculcated. And he said, ma'am, ye hota hai critical thinking, ये तो मैं आराम से करा सकता हूँ. I said, yes. So you have to make sure that it is not a big hua in the classroom. It is something which all of us can, do very easily. We ourselves understand, and hence the need of the teacher professional development for such things. And I'm sure I have lots and lots of experience out there. And we will start with Toral, and Toral will take us through to a few things about what is critical thinking. And I remember in one of the sessions that I attended, and somebody said, "जब हम अपने आप को critically देखते हैं, तो वो critical thinking होता है." So we want to move ahead from that and not leave it as thinking critically about our own selves. And I'm sure, Toral, you will give us that insight. So over to you.
Thank you, Dipti, and thank you, Mahatattva, for doing this. I think this is a great presented to all of us, not just the panelists here, but as part of the community of global educators, and you conduct poll. All of us wanted critical thinking as the first and foremost topic to be discussed, which got the highest votes. Needless to say that the other topics that are there also are equally important, but we were all very much wanting to discuss critical thinking first. So what is this critical thinking? And the question that is posed here is that what it means to think critically. To put it in layman terms, critical thinking is basically the ability to think for oneself and to express it. That's what it means. And it is basically thinking logically as we make sense of it using all kinds of information that is being given to us, what we make of that information, and connecting the dots. So if there are multiple things that are given to us in the same subject, probably, how are we making connections between the different information that is being presented to us? What sense does it make to us? By evaluating it, by logically coming to a conclusion, and also to do with asking questions, because critical thinking is not only evaluating and coming up with questions about what you have been told, but it is also to do with um, what questions you are coming up with, and not accepting everything that is being given to you. So, for example, just because your teacher is telling you that such and such, for example, they explains photosynthesis or whatever, then you, as a student, you are readily accepting it, and that is the case that is going on everywhere in classrooms, right? The child should be able to question why and why not. Critically evaluate why is this happening, right? And those kind of questions a child will be able to ask only if the teacher is able to create an environment which is non-threatening, which is non-judgmental, and which is very safe, where the child feels that, okay, I won't be laughed at, or I won't be called stupid or anything, or being labeled for asking such questions. So not just asking questions which are doubt based, but clear, but asking questions which make sense in the way to critically evaluate the situation. So, to give you an example, uh, like I have done many sessions. My session program is called Drishya, which means perspective. So I basically take Indian history and mythology and epics. So this is completely to do with children voicing out their thoughts and opinions on any of these topics. So a lot of self-reflection and analysis takes place, and that itself shows a lot and reveals a lot about yourself. So that's where you are critically evaluating yourself, as Dipti just said. You are evaluating by empathizing from the other person's point of view and presenting what you would have done in that case. So now, when we did Mahabharat, there were several questions that were. There was one question that was put up. Sorry, and that was, why do you think Gandhari actually blindfolded herself? And that's not mentioned anywhere in the epic. Yeah. So many children came up with different answers. Some said that she came up because she blindfolded herself simply out of empathy. Some said she did it because as a silent protest against Bhishma. Some said maybe she is doing it to get probably mercy, from everybody around, so that she gets gets put on a pedestal and everybody kind of respects her. So we got like endless possibilities to just one question, and these are open-ended questions that are asked. So critical thinking should invite lot of brainstorming sessions, debates, endless possibilities where there is no right or wrong answer, and there is no such thing that you are right and you are wrong, because once you stigmatize mistakes and label things as wrong, then children don't open up. And in critical thinking, there is one thing other than questioning information or arguments of any sort. You are constructing knowledge each time. So what do you mean by constructing knowledge? So in this, I had witnessed a class where a teacher was beautifully demonstrating about heliocentric and geocentric theory to children. So we all know that right now the theory that we follow and that is being there in the textbook and being delivered to children by teachers is about heliocentric theory. That is, the sun is in the center and the earth and all the planets move around the sun, right? But imagine yourself. So this was the situation that was given. Imagine yourself that you are a philosopher in the 14th century, and uh, what would you think is causing the day and night? What causes the day and night phenomena? And what makes the seasons take place? So that is when the child actually thought, okay, let's go back 14th century where there was nothing there. And probably going by the geocentric theory as put in by Aristotle and Ptolemy, that the earth is in the center instead and the sun is revolving around, you know. So children were actually thinking, then if that is the case, how is the day and night phenomena taking place? So maybe the sun is going around and completing a revolution within 24 hours. Yeah. Or how are the seasons taking place? So maybe it's like a corkscrew driver, where the sun is, this is the earth, and the sun is going around like this, down, takes 180 days, completes one cycle, and goes up and completes another cycle. So, 365 days like that. And I saw this happening. I was a complete observer there. And it was beautiful the way children were having these group discussions and all. So this is actually what is critical thinking, and where children completely, with the information or the prior knowledge that they already have, how are they connecting the dots? What is the
Right.
knowledge or the laws that they already know, which they are using it in the context?
Lovely. I want to be in that classroom, Toral, where you are doing all of these activities. It's sounding so much fun. So, Toral, I agree with you in a lot of points. And the when we and my team goes in for lesson observations in various schools, which open up for quality reviews, one of the main thing is the wait time. The teacher asks a question, and in I think 30 seconds flat they give the answers. So I think critical thinking, like you said, needs time for the children to be able to think what they want to say. And the examples that you're giving us are phenomenal. I mean, if you see earth as the center of the universe, what will change, and they will understand the dynamics, that if earth is at the center, what will happen to the seasons, what will happen to the day and night, and all of that. If they get that concept right, we are sure that they've got what it needs to be done. So questioning, very important. The children should be able to frame questions and also have different perspectives, and to be able to, I think what you said was absolutely valuable, to be able to respect each other's perspective, listen to what the others are saying as well. And I think when the pandemic happened, and we trained about 60,000 teachers pan India to come online via the Google projects that we did, one of the questions that came very frequently is, ma'am, what should we do? The children are just Googling the answer, so we don't know whether they know or they don't. I said, children will not change, right? You have to change the question that they can't Google them. So your question of that, what would she have done, if why did she blindfold herself, those questions can't be Googled. So we need to change, the teachers need to change to be able to ask the right questions. Absolutely smashing, Toral. That was wholesome. Not only I didn't see any definition, but the way you explained everything in the classroom or what you did. And one point which you said was, I was an audience, I just looked at what the children were saying. So I think that is a prerequisite. We have to let them think. So superb. So we will come back to you for some more insights, Soral. We'll move ahead to what we think is important to do. What are the different things that we need to get in to be able to start the critical thinking. So over to you, Surabhi, for the next discussion, and we will call up to Toral or Ms. Dhadwal, or in that case, we are there for you. We are there for your support. Just go ahead with the discussion, and we will chime in.
Thank you, Deepthi, and warm welcome to all the participants in this workshop. And Toral, you really gave some very important things. And I just wanted to add something very interesting over here, that I was introduced to critical thinking when a long time back. It was around in 1990 to 93, when not many people were talking about it in India. And the school where I was working was Vivek High School. So the person who came to train us, the trainer, he was a Canadian, but he Googled the meaning of Vivek, and he told us that critical thinking teaches each individual to use his or her Vivek, have the courage to stand by it, and have the right argument to support it, right? So that was a very wonder, and I always remember. So you train children to use their power of discretion when you are exposing them to critical thinking. Now there are a lot of questions whether children are born with critical thinking, can it comes naturally to them. The answer to this first part is no. Children are not born with critical thinking. They are born with some thinking skills, but you can't call them critical thinking, because they just start asking these questions of what, how, but these are not critical thinking questions. So when they attain around the age of 5, that is the time when active critical thinking exposure should be given to them. That is when the brain is developing at its peak, and they develop the power of analyze, rationalize, argue, question, not to take things at their face value. But that does not mean that we should not start the process with the children of younger than 5 years. We can allow them to have their make their decision, have an opinion, give them choices to make, Let them play with things where they can use their creativity and imagination. So the process should start from home as well as from in the school, as soon as the children start talking and they start asking questions. So that is how we can take critical thinking, initiate critical thinking in children, and it, as their age grow, we can increase the level in terms of Bloom's taxonomy, take it to the higher level of synthesize, evaluate, and that's how we can expose children to critical thinking. There are ways of introducing critical thinking to children, and some of them Toral has already talked about in her class, in her discussion. She said that she has allowed children to discuss as an observer. That is the first role of a teacher, not to say you are wrong, not to intervene. Wait and pause and observe and see what they are saying and how they are going about it. Let them work in groups, encourage them to ask question. Otherwise what happens is, there are most of the time some children whose hands are always up and they keep asking questions. Others they just sit ki, okay wo to pooch hi raha hai, why should I ask. Encourage those children also to ask. So when you are making a group in the class for any group activity, ensure that you have a mixed group where the shy ones, the quieter ones, the overexcited ones, all are grouped together in one group. And then ask them to, if they come for any solution, ask them what would you have done, right? Give them these things, give them a story and ask them, okay, can you change the ending? So these kind of exercises can be given to the children to improve critical thinking strategy or an ability in children. And remember, teachers, you have to train them for this skill. This will not come naturally, although it is an acquired skill. But for acquiring this skill, certain kind of environment has to be provided to them. And that is what the next thing that we are coming out to. So when we are talking about what kind of classroom environment teachers need to produce, I just want to say again that critical thinking is not about asking or allowing children to ask questions, or let them be free for asking questions, not to be scared. There are a couple of more important things which come along with it. One is called habits of mind. Critical thinking community has a certain class of habits of mind, which is courage, open mindedness, openness, inquisitive nature, ability to ask questions, have patience. So along with allowing children to ask questions and give them an open learning environment, you have to train them for these things also. So when one person is talking, others need to sit quietly, and even if they don't agree, they can't say no ma'am, he is wrong or she is wrong, or I have a better things to do. So these habits of mind also have to be inculcated in children. So these habits of mind should be a part of your classroom environment. Then certain vocabularies, critical thinking vocabulary, analyze, how will you compare, what do you think, how is your opinion different from the other person, can you support your opinion. This kind of vocabulary should be a part of your conversation with children. Along with these, so when we were being trained, we were also given the training to find out or teach children what is a good question. So the teacher would ask children, teach them a topic or give them some background knowledge and ask them, okay, you tell me what can be a question from this topic. And she would keep writing. Then she will ask the class that of all these 5-6 questions I have written over here, which question do you think is the best? So different children will give different answers, but they will have an opinion. So this is how they can be trained. So if supposing you are teaching them about Delhi, so where is Qutub Minar is obviously not a very intelligent critical thinking question, because it has got just one answer. So this is how children are trained to ask questions. So these things together, ability to ask questions, have courage, have certain habits of mind, use certain critical thinking vocabulary, will create a conducive environment where the community of critical thinking thinkers is nurtured. So
Great.
yeah, so
You really churned up our thinking, Survi, and lots of debatable points there that critical thinking can't be taught, and there has to be a series. And I am one of those people who will say, why should we follow the Bloom's taxonomy? We can go up to evaluation and creation and
at
synthesis,
any
right?
level.
Up
Yes,
front. So yes,
right,
so
right.
yeah, so I know you're very passionate about it because you are getting breathless talking about how it should be done, why it should be done, and that's fantastic. I love the energy, Sudhvi. I'm going to stop you here and
Yeah, thank you.
get Shirsha in for this discussion. But before I do that, Shirsha, I just want to point out a few things about questioning. So while I was still working at the British school here in Delhi, Chanakapuri, we did a unit with the children on Vikings. And yes, of course, Vikings was something that they were exploring, but one of the key skills that we were learning was questioning. So we told them that as they were planning the unit, we will be talking to a person in Yorvik, where they will talk to the person from that age, and what are the kind of questions that they will be asking this person. So they went ahead and they framed 5 questions each. One day before the session, we told them, oh, you can't ask 5. You have to ask only one question. So decision making. So they looked at the questions, which is the question that I should be asking. And what was not there in our lesson? That they went to each other. They said, I'm asking what was the most common name. So which question are you asking? So that we have only that many minutes. We shouldn't be asking the same question, right? So these are the kind of things which I feel I didn't teach them. So there is something innate in the child which just gets awakened when you give them the right substratum, right? So yeah, so taking that up, Shirsha, what would you think? We are talking about life skills, we are talking about how it is essential for everybody to have not only critical thinking skills. I said, I think even empathy, to get into a person's shoes and to feel, get into the skin of that person, to be able to feel and empathize. That's something that and that's part of critical thinking process as well. So what do you think about critical thinking as a life skill? What are your perspectives on that?
Okay, the first thing is thank you for inviting, and I've already started learning a few things about critical thinking as I was listening
Great.
to Ms. Toral and Ms. Surabhi, and of course what you mentioned just now about the example with teaching young kids about history. So the word critical itself, to some extent, says it's very important, right? Something very critical is and at the same time, at the beginning of the talk, you mentioned that people often think about critical thinking as critiquing their own thinking, which to some extent is also true. That you're able to, think about something and then rethink about it, saying that maybe I didn't consider all the points and I should be doing it again with maybe some more points, especially after listening to others. Like, for example, I might have prepared something about it, and as I was listening to Ms. Thoral and Ms. Surbhi, I would start saying that, oh, they have already covered these points. Maybe I should not be talking about it. Or that, these are new insights that I got. Can I include them and then talk more? So critical thinking sometimes also happens that on the fly, as you're collaborating with others, you start widening your perspective. So you become a good listener and try to learn as you are going through that process. So you're not already saying that this is what I'm going to contribute, this is what I know. You rather say that yes, this is how much I know, but I'm also having a team members who might be able to give me a better understanding of what I know, and in the end, by working with all of them, I would be so much better at understanding the same thing than what I started with. So that becomes a very important skill, and that's why I feel this idea of critiquing your thinking becomes important. Is while you're listening to others, you go back and reflect, saying that this is how much I could think. Oh, but I didn't know about this point at all, what somebody else mentioned. Let me also include that in my repertoire of things, and the next time I'm talking about it, I will also include these things, right? That's one part of life skill. The second is, we all know that the landscape of teaching and learning is changing so much, especially because the problems in our environment are changing. what existed some years before are no longer the problems, and they're constantly changing. So if we teach our students only set methods or set ways of thinking and doing, then we are not really preparing them to say that if things change in your world, will you feel lost and say that I have not been even thought about it, and I've never thought myself. However, if you start giving them these unfamiliar situations, like you suddenly told them no 5 questions, only 1 question, or you put them in a situation saying that, like Toral asked them about imagining themselves in the 14th century. It's so hard to imagine myself sometime where I can't exist at that time. I don't know how to live in the 14th century, but she made them go back into that phase. So if I put them in these unfamiliar situations, then maybe students will start seeing that I can't only keep repeating what I know, but I will have to think something new, because things are not going to remain static, they are changing. So what my parents used as a solution may no longer be applicable to me when I grow up and become an adult, and therefore I will have to use this kind of critical thinking to constantly think. I'll give you an example. So as a math teacher especially, often our students develop this kind of apprehension because we are a little rigid in saying yes, no, right, wrong all the time, right? uh, One reason also I feel is we ourselves are a little limited in our knowledge of mathematics. So sometimes I'm not able to take them to that new perspective because I'm lost at times as a teacher. However, so I'll give you a very simple instance. So in a middle school, I asked the student to draw a 2D diagram, okay, on the board, and the student drew capital B. Now, I would want you to think back and realize that capital B has two D's in it. And it was a 2D diagram. Of course, he did it for fun. But that was like it really hit me saying that, yes, sometimes math can also be. Similarly, I drew a right angle triangle on the left side of the board, and I was trying to point out, and I asked the student, can you point out to the right angle? And the student said, well, everything is on the left, so I can't point out at the right. So the same vocabulary. So what they were trying to bring out, and we often laugh about these things, is because math vocabulary is also used in other subjects, and they are sometimes used in a different context. So it is natural that sometimes I get confused. And they were saying that sometimes you should also realize that I can't learn subjects in isolation. You should also be familiar with what else I learn in other subjects, and that why do I get confused when you ask me something? It's not my inability to learn maths. It is because I'm bombarded with so many different definitions of one of some vocabulary that I may get confused. And that also said, yeah, that is also critical thinking. When I say that I need to make these connections between subjects, I also need to know what else they are learning in other subjects, so that i'm I'm able to empathize, or rather appreciate what is happening in their lives at their end, right? And therefore I'm not in my own box or cocoon of mathematics alone. I will have to start going outside. So sometimes I have to follow them into other classes and say, okay, what do they do there? Some of the students who are very quiet in my class, but they talk in a Hindi class or a history class. Why? So what stops them from doing that same kind of thinking and talking and discussing in my class? What is limiting them? And if I can reflect back, then I am in a way, and I often talk about these to my students also, that you know what, I'm really struggling. What can I do to tell them that I want to role model that thinking? I can't keep telling you be critical thinkers. I have to live that critical thinking in front of them in the classroom and say that's a skill for me as a teacher, and that will be a skill for everyone in every kind of a job. Otherwise you will never be dynamic, and the moment you are static, you become redundant, you become stagnant, you are, so that you're not growing any longer. Another aspect I like to say is that we have heard of this poem. I'm sure most of you must have read this. William Henry Davis said, "There's no time to stand and stare." Right? And I ask my students, what is it about? What do you all think it is about? What is the poet talking about? Could any one of you, Miss Deepthi, could you tell me what is that the poet is talking about? No time to stand and stare. What does the author or poet want us to do?
Yeah, so I don't think I've heard this poem, but
Okay.
it sounds interesting.
Okay. So the
Yeah.
the poem, the way
But
it
but
goes.
but it has already got me thinking. The very fact that you said, this is a line, and what do you think? So, right now I'm just not listening to what the teacher wants to say about it. The questions on my side, I have to start thinking about, what it could mean. So it just
So
opens up
that
this. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. When you read that entire poem, it is a lot. It seems like the poet is talking about we don't have time to look at the nature, appreciate it, and do that. And so often my
Right.
students say that, no, we don't, we're not appreciating nature. Is that what you want to tell me? I said, well, no time to stand and stare. Sometimes even with studies, when we stuck at a problem or we're stuck at a question,
Mhm.
we immediately go to the teacher or somebody or
Absolutely.
our parents and, can you tell me the answer? But I want you to stare at the problem, struggle with it for
Right.
something. Because then when you discover the answer, that's your solution. And you struggled with it. You're so happy when you get the answer to it. You
Yeah,
will not,
I'm
there is no
absolutely feeling like a student in your classroom where you're telling me deeply you were not listening. So, so yes, absolutely. I can actually totally relate to that. That's like superb. I think what I've got from you is multiple perspectives, the children getting multiple perspectives. And I know this Harvard strategy where of visible thinking, where you get the children to peer evaluation. So they've written something and then you pass the work around and they put their perspectives onto that. So by reading at least two or three perspectives, they get not only feedback on their own perspective, but they also read two or three more. So
yes,
getting
yes.
perspectives is something really really that we should do. Yes,
So also
absolutely. And
when I correct their answer scripts, I often look for people who have done something different from what we
yes,
have done in the class, and I acknowledge that in the
absolutely.
classroom because it's very very important that that positive
Absolutely. And I think
reinforcement comes for the people.
yes, absolutely. And I think it comes a full circle where you're talking about having different perspectives. You spoke about the real life problem solving, because I remember somebody talking about how the electricity and the automobile and the wheel, everything's done. Now, what we need to think is how do we conserve and preserve these things? So, that is your real life problem solving that you need to do. How do we make sure that there is something which can conserve electricity? How can we save the world's environment and all of that? And coming to that about the problem solving, how to be more innovative and creative to be able to create these solutions for ourselves. And what I really loved about what you said on agility, how you need to adapt all the time and get that you know shock out of the children to say anything can happen, you should be prepared for it. Let's hear Ms. Dhadwal's perspective on critical thinking in the classroom, and we come a full circle then. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much, Dipti. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. And I have, you know, just been watching and listening and observing. I mean, it's been such a marvelous journey this evening. And I'd like to share my thoughts with you on critical thinking. And for me, how is it? I mean, I feel that critical thinking skills are something which you can work on, which you can develop. It's like any sport. I mean, you work on that sport and you can become a, perfectionist at it. Similarly, I think that critical thinking skills can also be developed. For that, it is important that we observe, because observation is important to critical thinking, because observation is a primary way wherein people receive information. And I think listening is and observation is not done very often because we like to hear our own voices more. Another thing to develop critical thinking is to improve our communication skills, because it is when it comes to critical thinking, you should be able to communicate your views very effectively. There is something in all of us. We have this biases, whenever we listen to somebody's opinion, if it matches our opinion, we are for it. Otherwise, we reject the other person's opinion. And I feel this is what we need to do. We need to avoid confirmation bias. And what is confirmation bias? Confirmation bias is that we accept, information as valid, as right, as long as it conforms with what we think. But unfortunately, this affects our ability to process information. And as all of you have been saying, it is so important to be flexible in order to develop our critical thinking. Another thing, I was just reading up, geniuses and their critical thinking abilities. It's not that, by reading up, one is going to become a genius, but it's no harm to know what was it that they were doing, which we need to do in order to develop our critical thinking. What they did was that they were embracing nuances and complexity. As Charles Darwin said, look where others don't. And what we tend to do is we tend to follow the herd because we feel safe in numbers, and we are too scared. We are not bold enough to be independent and autonomous in our thinking. But here I'd like to bring in another stalwart, Albert Einstein. At the time when he was, working on his theory of relativity, other physicists assumed that the differences in the ways that bodies fall were too small to be of any significance. So they felt that there was no need for, for Albert Einstein to be, doing his research on bodies falling. So, but what Einstein thought was that these nuances, that these minor differences when bodies fall, is something that he wanted to investigate. So he just boldly went forward, investigated, and came up with this revolutionary theory of relativity, because he felt that details, nuances need to be investigated. And if there's something wrong, then it's probably worth finding out why it is wrong. Um, as I was listening to all of you about critical thinking, it just came to me that critical thinking means asking a lot of questions. When you're presented with information, you need to decide which questions are going to help you evaluate further. Are they going to help you to get rid of biases in the kind of information which has been presented to you? So, working on visible learning strategies, questioning has become a part of our thinking. And the kind of questions that you can ask when you're presented with information is, why is this information being provided? Is there some ulterior motive? What other perspective exists on this particular topic? Or what research already exists on this issue? So, as you
So
all have
tell
rightly
me,
pointed out,
yeah,
yes, yes,
yes, Ms.
yeah.
Dedwal. So I love the way the sequence of the process that you're telling us about critical thinking, and I want to come in here at this point. If you remember, we were talking about self-reflection, and we were talking about how self-regulated you need to become to be able to do that you need to do for critical thinking. But I remember this conversation between you and Shirsha, where you were talking about artificial intelligence. Now they say that it computer technologies will cover all of that, right? They will think for you, and they will do this, that, and the other. And just recently we found out that there is a college where they are going all back to pen and paper because they feel that the children have been caught cheating, and they are using artificial intelligence and things like that. So these are stories which will keep cropping up. So between you and Shirsha, if you can have that discussion on artificial intelligence and how that will help or can't help what we are doing with our teaching and learning in the classrooms, that would
All
be
right.
brilliant.
Shirsha, as we had discussed earlier, I had been I had been saying that critical thinking enables you to evaluate data, which helps you to make data-driven decision making, and that is what artificial intelligence is all about. But where we had a little bit of a difference of opinion was wherein I had said that we are becoming too reliant on the artificial intelligence, and therefore your human agency is getting diminished. we are not using our critical thinking because we are letting our artificial intelligence make choices for us, helping us to drive our cars, choosing our music for us. So this is where, and I had spoken about the risk of how artificial intelligence would be taking everything on for us in the near future, in the long run. And you
Yeah,
had come
yeah.
up with how
Yeah, so
artificial
my
intelligence.
question here is that here
Yes.
we are thinking about critical thinking in the classroom, getting the children, giving them the tools, and here is artificial intelligence which is coming in, and
And diminishing, the
yes,
decision making skill. Yes.
yes. So I mean, in Toral's class, we had children thinking, we had children looking at different scenarios. So what is this going to be? What do you think is going to be the future there,
So there are
What
Shisha?
do you
two
think is the
aspects
risk?
to it. Is One is that artificial intelligence, by introducing technology, we are kind of introducing a new sense organ for the students and allowing them to access information that earlier they felt was not available. For example, sometimes a student of business some few years back had to be rigorously taught mathematics also, because the kind of data that they had to work with and make decisions were involving serious math. Now, what presently AI tools are allowing them to say is that if you understand the aspects of business, I will do the back end mathematics for you and give you numbers which you can then analyze. So I'm removing that fear of saying that I will have to be a master of everything to be able to run business. And I think a part of it, the artificial intelligence tools will help you do, and therefore make things more accessible. Similarly, if there are students who are worried about working with decimals and they're more so that then we are telling them that okay, fine, because at one point you may no longer be even needed to do that. So this idea of mental math that we were so obsessed with now is going
Hmm.
off, because we are saying that it's fine
Absolutely. Yeah.
if
So
children are
Toral,
learning.
what will AI do to your classroom, Toral?
See, we already know that that see, critical thinking also in the 21st century skills includes writing bit, right? So
Hmm.
now that the Chat GPT has come up, am I audible?
Yes,
Am I
yes,
audible?
perfect, perfect.
So yeah. So now that the whole thing, the open AI that has come up and talking about Chat GPT, is a completely different dimension that it is giving. And everybody, especially I'm being an educator, all of us being educators here, we really need to rethink and reimagine what will this Chat GPT do, because we are making now, for example, we are making children do imaginative writing. Like I had done this particular course with children on Sapiens by Yuval Harari. So that talks about where given a situation where what is the importance of having the opposable thumb? Like we all primates have the opposable thumb. What would you do without it? Children were actually not aware of what is this importance of having opposable thumb, because only we primates have it, right? And what is the importance of having frontal eyes? Yeah, and also being a bipedal, right? So they had to write all this, imagine and write all this, right? Going back in the day and write all this. So if I have something like Chat GPT and say that you write as if I were probably change the tone and write it like a journalist or somebody like that, then those particular skills of writing is already taken care of, because Chat GPT is just doing wonders. I have tried using it. It's just an amazing tool. It's free to use, so that maybe they'll make it paid. But as far as if something like that an AI can do, then I don't know. Maybe it can do wonders for us. But obviously,
Right.
talking about emotions and the social aspect of it, maybe it's far away from there, and that's what
Sure.
also matters in critical thinking.
And I think, Toril, we are very fortunate that our schools do not have those kind of budgets where technology can, just gush into the classrooms. We still have our own little space where we can, talk to them and do these lovely exercises that you spoke about and you explained to us. So I think we have a lot to thank there. We were talking about how creativity or innovation gets done as a byproduct of what we are doing when we are doing critical thinking. So I think there is a question in the chat on YouTube, that do you anyone can take this question: do you think that there is a relationship between critical thinking and creativity? I think Shahila, yes, Shahila School Kalyan, Shahila is there, and she's the one who's asked that question. Who would like to take that up? Is there
So,
any relation?
right, for this, yeah. So,
Yes.
yeah. So the answer is yes, because when we are uh, training children to develop critical thinking skills, we give them certain kind of questions or assignments where they use their thinking ability rationalize. So, like some example can be designed to specs. So the teacher will give certain specifications to the children, and the children have to design a new product or critique the piece. If they are critiquing a piece, they are using their creative skills also along with rationalization, logic. So critical thinking is related to creativity. Without creativity, there is no critical thinking. They go hand in hand together, and so
And
that is
vice
why.
versa. And vice versa as well. I think
Vice versa,
both
right?
both
Vice
ways.
versa. So the answer is yes. Teachers have to train children to be creative, and they have to train children to be critical also. And when we were talking about this word critical, I remember when we had started critical thinking, people were very much against it because they thought that this is criticizing others' point of view. But
Yes.
as we got into it more and more, we came to know that it is just the opposite. Actually, it is respecting and accepting others' point of view and not challenging it, or challenge it with a positive attitude and solid arguments. So yes,
Right.
Shaila, critical thinking and creative thinking, they go hand in hand together.
So I think there are some responses on AI as well that just flashed and went away. So I didn't get to read it. But when we are talking about um, what Shirsha said, that she needs to model that behavior in front of the children. And if you've seen this video on YouTube, the title I think says "Children See, Children Do," and it's something that you have to model for the children. And I think we have about 7 minutes, and I want to pick your brains on what do you think about the right way to get the teachers ready for something like this. So the professional development, and I know Shisha is looking after professional development of a teacher, and so is Toral, and of course Miss Dhadwal, and we have Surbhi, who are looking at Mahatattva schools and the professional development. So just 5-minute take on each one of you. So if you can just speak in any order, what do you think is the best way to get the teachers ready for inculcating these skills into the classroom?
I'll start off. I think the first thing that teachers have to can remember is that it's okay to go wrong, and you do not have to necessarily know all the answers. That's not anything to do with teaching. Most of the times you're the cheerleader who keeps saying, "Yes, you can do it. Go ahead," and I'm there to kind of clap for you. And the students do most of the thinking running. So as long as you give them that positive reinforcement and say that you all often take the risk of going wrong, you come back and make those corrections, they feel encouraged to continue doing that. So as a teacher, I think that's
Great. That is superb, Shisha, because what you're telling them is that it's okay to be wrong, and you're giving them that environment to be, to feel that they can speak out what they want to. So superb. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to say that, when I started Drishya, it has changed me as a person because I no longer judge anybody with their answers, and I no longer see where they are coming from. Nothing. It's just their answers, and that's it. And whatever they answer, I just want to acknowledge and listen to them without any reaction. So I have to hold myself from reacting. You know, all they need is just listening. Because if you start reacting, if any teacher starts reacting, they see that okay, my teacher likes this, so probably I should give this kind of an answer. She would appreciate this. My teacher probably does not like this because I've seen that she commenting on others on answers like this. So maybe I should refrain from such answers. So a teacher should provide a completely non-threatening environment where the child is completely free, open to discuss whatever he wants. And this is very difficult. It's very easier said than done. And the teacher has to be consciously mindful of that. So I would suggest the teachers should be extremely should be doing some mindfulness activities. You know, whether it's meditation or journaling or whatever, we should be very conscious of everything that she is speaking because anyway she has to speak less during the class. So I would just like to say that.
So I will take forward what Shirisha said, because being a teacher myself, I'm going to talk from their perspective, that like we are saying that a teacher is responsible to create a non-threatening environment in her class so that the children have the courage to be open-minded and ask questions. Right? In the same way, the teachers' heads, mentors, trainers have to create similar kind of environment for a teacher, so that she has the, so this is where Shirisha's point comes, that it is okay to be wrong, it is okay to make mistakes. So that's what I think is also very important, that as trainers, heads, mentors, we also have to create that non-threatening environment in which teachers are freely and happily accepting changes and bringing them into their classrooms. Thank you.
Uh, I think that if you want to develop critical thinking in class, it's very important to engage your children. They need to be center stage because that is when they get to, express their opinions. And I think that debating, taking up any topic in any multidisciplinary, you have your quizzes, you have your debates. I mean, they are like a trigger wherein they get everybody to come forward and to express their opinion, and somehow when this is happening together, there's that oneness in the class. They are more comfortable, and they feel that okay, this is more fun, and in that fun activity, what is coming and what is developing is their critical thinking. Thank you.
Superb, superb. So I think we are all talking about giving the wait time, looking at how do we, like Toril said, and I love that phrase that we need to respond and not like react to what is being said in the classroom. And I can, when she was talking about mindfulness exercises, there was this image which was coming into my mind where I had beads in my hand and I'm counting and I'm not speaking till the child has spoken his point of view. So yes, we do need to have teachers who refrain from giving their own opinion, their own voice, and let the student agency be there. And how can we do all of this without being judgmental? Very difficult, as Shirsha and Toril both pointed out. And I love the flow that Ms. Dhadwal gave. How can we get the children to, first observe, then to be able to communicate what they're doing? Yes, we have, they will be taking different multiple perspectives, but if we look at having perseverance, having adaptability, being creative, being innovative, being able to, without being judgmental, express different perspectives, we are giving them life skills, right? So this entire discussion on is critical thinking, is it a life skill? I think you have answered that beautifully. And I'm so grateful for your experience in the classroom, which will give a jumping board to all those people who are listening or who will be listening at us at some point in time. So, thank you so much, everyone, for joining in and giving us your perspectives on this very, very top rated topic for the global educators. This was number one, and that's why it's here. Thank you so much for your time. And it was absolutely a learning experience for me as well. Have a pleasant evening. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, everyone. Pleasure being here.
Thank you.